£375 billion. But one thing that we did get, and this is different to in previous months, in previous years, under the former governor, Sir Mervyn King, was that we got a bit of information, we got a bit of insight into what the bank is actually thinking. We'll hear a lot about this over the coming months, and it's this notion of forward guidance, the idea that the Bank of England will start to give ideas about maybe when interest rates might start to rise, and maybe even then tying them to specific targets. So if economic growth registers at a certain level, or if unemployment begins to fall and hits a certain level, then that is when the Bank of England may start to take action when it comes to interest rates. But nonetheless, today's announcement pretty underwhelming as far as the markets were concerned. They're really just trying to get an idea of what the new boss, what the new man at the helm will deliver for the bank. The real truth, the real telling things will be when we get the minutes of this meeting. They'll be published in about 2 weeks' time. So we'll get an idea of exactly what they were thinking and just how many members on that MPC panel, how they voted, and exactly who's thinking what and when.
And sterling at a 1 month low against the dollar, government bonds falling sharply as well. How does that come about? Just explain how that fits in with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the number now, Tim, and sterling's off about 1.4% against the dollar, and this is all tied in, of course, with the perceived risk when it comes to the UK, but also in relation to what we've seen in the United States, of course, because the US Fed, the central bank there, has also made it known that they're pulling back from their strategy of propping up the economy through more rounds of quantitative easing, through more asset purchases. We heard that that had a big effect on the markets because there was a lot of concern at the time about, is the US economy, is the world economy really ready to stand on its own 2 feet? And that really ties in with what we're seeing here too. The Bank of England, the central bank here, saying, well, we're not really at that position yet. And it's also interesting, if you read down into the statement from the Bank of England, they say that it's a bit of a warning shot, really, to many investors and many of the markets. They say that in the committee's view, the implied rise in the expected future path of the bank rate was not warranted. So they were basically saying investors are getting a little bit ahead of themselves when they start to talk about when rates will rise. Yes, the economy is heading in the right direction. Yes, a lot of the economic indicators are looking better. We have better than expected manufacturing, better than expected construction figures. We've also had a stronger than expected rise in the service sector, which still accounts for about 3/4 of our economic output. So whilst things are heading in the right direction, we're not there yet. So it's a case of really wait and see, just see what the economy does before we start to take any drastic action. And on the flip side of all this, many critics say actually the new boss at the Bank of England should just stay hands off. Things are heading in the right direction, the bank shouldn't get involved, and things might start to get better on their own.
Okay, great. Ben, thank you very much indeed.
Police say they're treating the deaths of a woman and a child in South Wales as unexplained. Police were called to the house in Merthyr Tydfil yesterday afternoon. The woman has been named locally as Joanne Thomas.